Jessiak, how's business these days?
Hey, didn't you know? Jasiak's factory closed down.
People realize who is truly by their side only when they lose what they have. On the day the factory I had built over 40 years closed its doors, the people who used to act all high and mighty calling me brother and boss had vanished like smoke. I trusted only my friends of 50 years. I thought surely even those guys wouldn't do that. But what I received in return was not comfort, but a dagger. I know your situation perfectly well. You need to save money now. You have nothing to worry about even though the factory went bankrupt. You have capable people by your side. Does the weight of friendship change when status disappears? Who will be my true ally in my old age? Today's story is a record of a man who left his glamorous past behind and returned, empty-handed, searching for the true treasures of life. Please stay with me until the end. Before we begin, please subscribe, like, and turn on to notifications. Your small contributions are a great help in making videos together. I am Park Jae-seok. My hands trembled on the day the factory closed. It had been 40 years. From starting with just one machine out of 26 to building a factory with over 4 employees, everything collapsed in an instant. It's probably about 10 years ago that our unit prices first started getting cut. Large corporations pressured us to lower prices, citing cost reduction and whatnot. It was a small cut at first, but once it started, it kept dropping little by little every year. Meanwhile, labor costs and material prices went up. The only thing decreasing was the unit price. Yet all the expenses just kept rising. Still, I held on. Because I had employees, and they had to make a living, I kept telling myself, just a little more, and endured. But at some point, when I looked into my bank account, I couldn't hold on any longer. The night I returned from delivering to my last client, I told my wife for the first time, I can't do this anymore. From that day on, I spent months clinging to the task. I disposed of the factory site and building I'd spent my entire life with, and the machinery and equipment I had cherished like my own children, one by one. It felt like my heart was being torn away, but I couldn't run away. I couldn't bear to make the people who trusted and followed me shed tears, even if it meant my life of 40 years crumbled. Fortunately, after liquidating all my assets, I was able to cover the employees' severance pay and the overdue payments to clients. I had effectively avoided being indebted to anyone. The result of those 40 years felt truly futile. When I looked into my bank account after the settlement was complete, I found that absolutely nothing remained in my hands. That chilling silence, as if the factory's heart had stopped beating, felt heavy enough to stop my own heartbeat. The sound of machinery whirring, the footsteps of employees coming and going, the smell of stew wafting from somewhere during lunchtime, things I had heard and experienced every day for decades, yet on that day, there was nothing there. There was nothing there. That stillness felt so unfamiliar and heavy that I stood in front of the shutter for a long time. I couldn't bring myself to move. The faces of the employees came to mind one by one. Foreman Kim, who had come out since his newly quit days and raised 2 children. Assistant Manager Lee, who had been at his first job for over 10 years since graduating from college, and Mr. Park, who had never once been late despite caring for his ailing mother. On the day I handed them my last paycheck envelope, I couldn't look them straight in the eye. "Boss, are you okay?" Foreman Kim asked. "Are you okay?" At those words, I burst into tears. I cried alone in the car for a long time. Even as I cried, what lingered in my mind wasn't guilt toward those people. Of course, I felt sorry, but there was a thought that came to me first. It's over for me now, too. That was what made me feel more ashamed. I am someone who worries about myself before worrying about others. When my business was doing well, money felt like just numbers. My hands didn't tremble even as I stamped contracts worth tens of millions of won. It felt like the most natural thing to do. It felt like the larger the numbers in my bank account, the bigger I was growing as a person. However, when I went to the supermarket for the first time, after closing down the factory, I stood in front of the fruit aisle for a long time. I held 2 charms in my hand, looked at the price tags, put them back down, and repeated this process until I eventually just came back empty-handed. They were 15,000 won. I, who used to think tens of millions of won were nothing, put down a 15,000 won goshawk and returned home. That thought wouldn't leave my mind the entire way home. That day was the first time I realized that a mere 100,001 was starting to scare me. The one saving grace was my wife. She didn't say a word. She didn't resent me, nor did she get angry. She just stood silently by my side throughout the entire process of closing down the factory, from the day I received the employees' final farewells to the day I came home crying in the car. She simply prepared meals for me. Soybean paste stew and steamed eggs. It was nothing special on the table, but I was truly grateful for the smell. I think that was when it started. My phone began to go quiet. At first, I just let it be. I assumed everyone was busy and delaying contact because they didn't know what to say about me closing the factory. However, even after a month passed and then two, no one reached out first. Brother, what are you doing this week? I need to meet up. Those overflowing texts suddenly stopped one day. I thought they liked me, but it turned out they liked President Park. President Park, who owned a factory, had the title of president and could treat people to meals. Once all of that was gone, it felt like I had disappeared too. It took me longer than I expected to realize that. Or perhaps I knew it, but I just didn't want to admit it. Nights spent picking up and putting down my phone, hesitating whether I should contact them first. Days when I eventually didn't, another day passed. So this is how people get sorted out. Just like this, silently. Then one day, at a gathering of classmates I'd known for 50 years, a message popped up in the group chat. Hey, let's play some golf for the first time in a while. How about next Saturday? The sender was Choi Man-ho, a friend who retired after working his entire life as a civil servant. I heard he lives a comfortable life these days, collecting his pension. After reading it, I just sat there for a long time. Should I go or not? 50 years of friendship is a strange thing. I didn't want to see them right away, but I felt like I would be disappointed if I didn't go. After agonizing over this for a while, I finally clicked attend. It has been 50 years. I thought, where could the years we spent together go? Enough time for the landscape to change 5 times. Even though everyone I met through business had left, I believed these guys would be different. To be honest, perhaps I just wanted to be comforted a little. I thought they were the only ones who would silently pat my empty-handed shoulders, telling me I had worked hard all this time after having weathered all the storms of life. Back then, trusting in the depth of our 50-year friendship, I was simply desperate for a place where I could lean on with peace of mind. For a few days after the date of the gathering was set, my mind was inexplicably restless. It was normal to be excited seeing faces I hadn't seen in a long time, but strangely, I kept finding myself worrying about things. What should I wear? Have I gained weight lately? Should I get my hair trimmed? I found myself constantly thinking about trivial things. Then, suddenly, I thought of my golf clubs. There were some old clubs tucked away in a corner. I took them out to look. The grips felt fresh and fit my hands, but they were rusty in places. I was too busy shredding the factory to go out properly. And recently, I've been so preoccupied with winding down the factory that it must have been years since I last played on the course. I remembered going out to the course with clients using these clubs. I chuckled to myself, remembering how I used to treat everyone to dinner and drinks after the round. I picked one up to try cleaning it, but just put it back down. Cleaning it wouldn't make any difference. I felt like I would lose my confidence before even stepping onto the field if I took these out. I heard that my friend Mato plays golf even more diligently after retiring. Dong-soo, who retired from a large corporation, also posted in our group chat recently that he had gotten new gear. Young Chil was always the type of guy who didn't skimp on his equipment. I thought to myself, if it were the old days, I would have taken out the best clubs. But as I pondered that, I just closed the warehouse door. Old things are old, and nothing changes. On the weekend, I was deep in thought. My daughter Soyeon's family came over. I walked in carrying a golf bag that looked luxurious at first glance. Seoyeon sat down next to me and spoke quietly. I heard from Dad and Mom that you're going out to the course with your friends for the first time in a while. After a brief pause, Sai said, "Don't be discouraged," as he placed the bag on the living room floor. "It's nothing special, Dad. Just try it out." I opened it, and it was a set of golf clubs. They weren't just any clubs. They were limited edition models from a brand I knew the name of, but never dared to buy. Both the bag and the clubs were brand new. I was speechless for a long time. I should have said thank you, but my throat felt numb. And as I handed over clubs, the tip of my nose tingled. Junio asked, "Isn't this too expensive? You've worked hard your whole life, Dad, and so I wanted to give you a gift like this." Junhyuk said that with a smile. He is truly a good son-in-law. I know that his sincerity is genuine. I knew that Seong-chin had asked for this because she was worried about her dad. I felt that the reward for spending 40 years guarding the factory, getting grease under my fingernails, was right here. Still, I did raise one child exceptionally well. Meanwhile, my granddaughter Jiha was running around the living room. The 3-year-old toddled over, then came and plopped down on my lap. My daughter Sefyeon said, "Jiha, Grandpa is sick." But Jiha paid no heed, grabbed my hand and mumbled something. As I held her hand, my eyes involuntarily drifted toward the golf clubs. The golf gear Sai had bought for me. It felt like just yesterday that I could buy things like this whenever I wanted. That there was a time when I used to send boxes of items worth hundreds of thousands of won as holiday gifts to clients so that I would hand over a card at that dinner saying, "I'm treating everyone today. I'm treating everyone today." But seeing that my daughter met such a wonderful son-in-law, I thought that even though the factory had closed, I must have cultivated my life well. I patted my son-in-law on the back. "Thank you, Junyeyo." I held my granddaughter Jiha's hand tightly. Whether her grandfather was successful or not, my granddaughter knew nothing. She simply sat on my lap because she liked him. That day, the warmth of my little granddaughter felt so comforting that a corner of my heart felt heavy. We ate dinner together, and my daughter's family left. As Yeon left, she said it one more time. "Dad, have a good trip. It's been a while since you've seen your friends." I nodded with a smile. "Okay, Dad, I'll have a good trip." While my wife was doing the dishes, I took out my golf clubs again in the living room. I took them out one by one, grabbed the grips, felt the weight, and put them back in. They were good clubs. With clubs like these, I felt I could stand quite confidently on the course. But a part of my heart kept feeling heavy. My reality that I couldn't even buy a single golf club as I pleased. That single thought wouldn't leave my mind. I felt both grateful and bitter at the same time, but I couldn't tell which was stronger. I wasn't sure if I felt sorry for my son-in-law Junhyuk or if I was just being petty for feeling this way. Everything was just complicated. To be honest, I was a little worried about this gathering. I heard the man one worked as a civil servant his whole life, retired. I also heard that Dong-soo was an executive at a large corporation, took home a hefty severance package, and is currently investing in real estate. I was told that Young Gil comes from a well-off family, and his business is still doing well these days. Everyone else lives such hard-working lives. Yet here I am, closing my factory, and heading out with the golf clubs I bought for me. I wondered what I should be worried about, considering we've known each other for 50 years, but something kept weighing on my mind. I was worried about what those guys would say the moment we first ran into each other and what kind of look they would give me. As my wife came out into the living room, she asked, "Are you looking at the golf clubs again?" I replied. She said, "Just that Sai bought a good one. They look nice." "They are good." She didn't say anything more. My wife didn't ask any further questions either. I couldn't sleep well that night. Staring at the ceiling, I wondered if I should have said I was going, and it was a night filled with many thoughts. The morning of the gathering arrived. I parked my car in the golf course parking lot and looked outside for a moment. The weather was really nice. I took the golf bags I had bought for me out of the trunk. It felt unusually heavy. I laughed thinking about how long it had been since I had been on the field carrying such good equipment. It felt like the weight of the heart that my daughter and Sai had put in me. Manhof raised his hand first near the entrance. I was glad to see him. Seeing Manhof's face, I could really feel the passage of 50 years. As he walked towards me waving, he looked like he had lost some weight and had a healthy complexion. He seemed to have gotten even younger since retiring. Dong-soo and Young-cheol were already there as well. "Hey, Park Jae-suk. Long time no see." Dong-soo patted my shoulder. Young-cheol grinned and extended his hand for a handshake. The first time I met these guys was back in middle school. His smiling face was exactly the same now as it was then. Just seeing his face made me feel good. Wait. Dongsu's eyes went to my golf bag. It was only for a moment, but I didn't miss that look. Oh, JC, your gear looks different. Isn't this a limited edition? Did you buy it recently? Young Chiol pointed at the golf bag and said, Sa-in gave it to me as a gift. Sa-in is really living the good life, you really are. The place I remember from the past was where I was the first to pull out my card. That was the kind of husband I used to be, but now I just quietly carried my bag and walked along. Once the round started, the conversation flowed naturally. Manho spoke first. I'm really at ease these days. Since my pension is coming in, I don't really worry about money. Dangsu said, Don. Yeah, I bought another apartment after settling my severance pay. It's going up these days, Young Kiol said with a laugh. As expected, Dongsu has a sharp eye. I was listening while hitting the ball. There wasn't a single thing wrong with what they said. Manho has lived an honest life, Dongsu, paid attention to financial management from an early age, and Young Kiol has successfully kept his business going. Everyone has lived more fiercely than anyone else, and done well in their respective positions. However, as I listened, the conversation kept getting quieter. But the strange thing was that no one brought up the factory. Everyone knew that I had mentioned closing the factory in our group chat, but not No, Dongsu, or Young Kao said a word about it. At first, I just let it slide. I thought they probably felt awkward bringing up heavy topics since we hadn't seen each other in a long time. But even after we started the round and talked about this and that, not a single person brought it up in the end. I couldn't bring myself to say it must have been tough. You worked hard, my friend. Naturally, the conversation turned to their children. Manho was the first. My son got promoted to a big company this time. So hard to get promoted these days, so congratulations. Dongsu smiled and congratulated him. He's smart, just like me. Everyone laughed. Dongsu spoke up, not to be outdone. My daughter asked me to go on an overseas trip with her this time. I guess my investment went well. That's how kids these days are. They invest well. Young Kiol nodded and said, seeing your children succeed is the most important thing. It's so rewarding to see them take care of themselves. I looked down at the ball. I thought of Seo-yan. Living as a factory owner for 40 years, I raised my daughter without ever having to ask anyone for favors. That was my only source of pride. However, the fact that the only thing I can boast about right now on the field is my son-in-law's financial power leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. The limited edition golf club, which my daughter and I had carefully prepared for me, suddenly felt awkward, like wearing borrowed clothes, rather than a weapon that fit my hand perfectly. I used to think the saying about living in luxury, thanks to one's children, was just a compliment, but now that I was actually in that situation, it felt like a sentence that I had become someone who had nothing left to give to anyone. I hit the ball. It went better than I expected that day. Manno said, "It really makes a difference with good equipment." I just smiled. It was the whole round. I wasn't feeling very good. It wasn't that the guys had changed. It was that I was changing. I know from what my friend said that I don't have a baby. We are friends I've known for 50 years, but at some point, it felt like a transparent line had been drawn on the field. A line that was invisible, but clearly present. The feeling that I was standing alone on a different side. That feeling didn't disappear until the round was over. After the round, I entered the clubhouse. As I wiped my sweat and sat down, I felt somewhat comfortable for the first time today. I had so many thoughts on the field, but after hitting the ball, my body had loosened up a bit. Munga stretched and said, "Hey, the weather was really good today." Yeah, we really played ball for the first time in a while. Dongsu chimed in. For a brief moment, it felt just like the old days. fiddled with the card in my pocket as I stood in front of the front desk clerk. I naturally reached out my hand. Since I hadn't seen my friends in a long time, I wanted to treat them. In the past, I was always the one to pull out my card first at gatherings like this. That was my way of doing things. I'll pay today. As I handed over my card, Mono grabbed my wrist. Hey, forget it. We'll pay. No, it's been a while since we met, so I'll treat. Then Dongsu said, Jesse, we know my situation. This isn't the time for that. You need to save money now. My hand froze for a moment. My card lay on the table just as it was. Situation. That word echoed in my ears once more. In the 40 years I've run this factory, I've never once asked anyone to show me consideration. If it looked like the employees' salaries might be delayed, I'd empty my personal account to make up for it. I've never once felt that meals and drinks for clients or friends were a waste. Yet, just because I offered my card once, the word situation came up. Young Chiel chimed in with a laugh. Hey, what are friends for? They're there to look out for you in times like this. Just let them treat you today. Everyone laughed. I know you don't have a baby. I know they are genuinely worried. But that was even harder. If they had said it with bad intentions, I could have at least gotten angry, but those guys were genuinely worried about me. Their eyes pierced me like fingernails. I put my card in. Okay, thanks. That was the only word that came out. Inside, I had so much to say. When did I ever ask you guys to be understanding? I just wanted to show them how. The words rose in my throat, but I swallowed them. I felt like I would look even more pathetic the moment I spoke them. So I just smiled. Actually, I wanted to leave that place right then and there. I felt like I couldn't breathe in the midst of my friends. I gathered my bag and stood up. Sorry, I'm not feeling well today, I'll head in first. Just then, he grabbed my arm and said, Hey, JCO, it's been a while since we all got together, so we should at least eat before you go. How long has it been since we last saw each other and you're leaving already? Come on, sit down. The food is coming out soon. I feigned apology and sat back down. I was afraid that even the way I walked out, as if running away would look like a defeat, so I pulled my chair back up and sat down. The food we ordered arrived, and the conversation flowed naturally again. Manho talked about pensions, Dongsu discussed current real estate prices, and Jungkyo laid out his plans for a trip to Southeast Asia next month. I listened while eating. With every spoonful, the food tasted strangely bland. Near the end of the meal, Dongs tossed out a remark. Jae-sak probably has nothing to worry about. Even though the factory went bankrupt, he has capable friends by his side, so shouldn't we be envious of you? Everyone laughed, and I laughed too. I didn't know where that laughter came from. After finishing our meal, Mono said, Let's grab a cup of coffee before we go. Everyone naturally followed him. When we were ordering coffee, I spoke first. I'll treat you. But Dongsu waved his hand. No. This coffee isn't that expensive. We'll buy it for you. Just stay put. I told you to just let us treat you today. It was at that moment. Something welled up inside me. I held it back. I held it back one more time. But Young Hyeo, laughing beside me, added another remark. We really should look after Jae-seok. We know his situation perfectly well. He might accept the golf club Sai bought him. But he can't exactly take an allowance on top of that, he said with a laugh. The moment he finished speaking, my mouth opened without me realizing it. Hey, my voice came out lower than I expected. Everyone stopped laughing. When did I ever ask you guys to be understanding? No one spoke. Or rather, it seemed they couldn't. I was surprised by my own voice too. I didn't want to show it. But once the words had burst out, they wouldn't stop. I said I'd pay for the round, I said I'd pay for the meal, and I'll buy a cup of coffee whenever I want. Does that look that pitiful? Manho raised his hand. Hey, Jay. See, that's not what we meant. Then what did we mean? A brief silence followed. Dong-soo spoke with a cool smile. Siwa, we're doing this because we're genuinely worried about you. You've closed down the factory, and things are tough right now. What's so strange about friends looking out for each other? Hearing those words, a corner of my heart ached even more. Right, you said it well. You knew the factory was closed, yet no one brought it up first. You didn't say a single about it all day. Silence fell again. Min-no avoided eye contact, and Dong-soo just mindlessly fiddled with his coffee cup. Watching that stillness, I realized something. It wasn't that these friends were bad. It was that we were now living in a different world. 50 years ago, we were all friends who used to run around, breathing in the black dust, but now their lives were so comfortable and smooth that they were no longer vessels, capable of holding my rough misfortune. As our statuses changed, so did the language of friendship. What they needed was President Park to laugh and chat with, not Park Jae-suk, who needed comfort. Man-no placed his hand on my shoulder, looking apologetic. Daisio, we were short-sighted. I'm sorry. We were a bit thoughtless. Dong-soo nodded. We just wanted to talk about nice things since we were meeting for the first time in a while. I figured you wouldn't want to bring up painful stories either, so I did it all out of consideration for you. Consideration for you. No, it's fine. Maybe I was being a bit sensitive. Although I said that I knew it wasn't my true feeling. I took a sip of coffee. As we parted ways and walked toward the parking lot, young Keel patted my shoulder and said, let's see each other more often. Next time, let's get together as couples. Servicette? I nodded with a smile, but my steps were heavy. I sat alone without starting the engine. The things I had said today kept swirling in my head. I had no regrets, because I had to say them. But strangely, I didn't feel light. It felt like nothing had been resolved, even though I had said everything I needed to say. Ass looked so pitiful, trying to protect my pride. I just watched my friends' cars drive out the window one by one. On the way home, I stopped at a convenience store. I bought a can of coffee. It was 1,500 won. Sitting on a bench and taking a sip alone. Strangely enough, this was the most comfortable moment of the day. No one was worried about my wallet, and I had simply bought a 1,500 won can of coffee with my own money, as I pleased. There was no one I had to be mindful of. I think that was exactly why this bench felt more comfortable than a clubhouse dining table, worth hundreds of thousands of won. After sitting for a while, I stood up, threw the empty can into the trash, and got into the car. As I gripped the steering wheel, the day's events washed over me all at once. Why did my heart feel so heavy? We were friends of 50 years. I couldn't tell if it was truly a get-together for my sake or if I was just being overly sensitive. Since that day, I have come to realize something. That a person is finished, not when money is involved, but when their pride crumbles. When I got home, my wife was in the kitchen. The smell of simmering kimchi stew had filled the entire house. You're back? You're home earlier than I expected? Yeah, the traffic wasn't bad. As I took off my shoes, the day flashed through my mind once again. As usual, my wife set the table without asking a single question. I settled back down at the table. I took a spoonful of the steaming stew, and the warmth going down my throat seemed to melt away all the chill I had felt on the course today. It was different from the expensive gourmet meal at the clubhouse, which had been tasteless. It was warm. My wife spoke first. Did you play well with your friends? Yeah, I played well. It was nice seeing everyone for the first time in a while. Yeah, it was good. But why do you look like that? Did something happen? My expression must have been gloomy. No, nothing happened. My wife was about to say more, but stopped. She waited silently until I spoke first. I was truly grateful for that quiet consideration. Even after we finished eating, we just sat there for quite a while. My wife finished the dishes and came out to sit on the sofa. I turned on the TV, but I couldn't focus on a single word. Then my phone notification rang. It was a group chat. Neho had uploaded photos from today's round of golf. A group photo taken at the reception. Pictures of us hitting balls on the course and photos of us eating at the clubhouse. In the photos, we were still middle schoolers. We were laughing like kids. Dongsu replied, today was really good. Let's do it again next month. Young Chiol replied, yeah. JCI came out for the first time in a while, and the weather was nice. It was perfect. I read the messages and quietly put my phone down. My wife looked at me from the side. Are those your friends? Yeah, that today was good. There was a moment of silence. Tell me, honey, what happened today? I hesitated for a long time, wondering whether to tell her or not before finally speaking. Actually, something happened today. Honey, I felt really strange today. They claimed they knew my situation perfectly well, yet they tried to hold on to me, insisting they would pay for golf, red bean paste, and coffee. It felt exactly like they were telling me to stay quiet, because it was the end for me, and it really upset me. Those guys who never said a word when I used to treat them to meals and drinks, who didn't say a word about how hard we worked when the factory closed, to treat me like a pitiful person. Now, my wife quietly placed her hand on mine. Her hand was as rough and warm as my own, the hand that used to run the factory. Honey, you really lived your life to the fullest, running that huge factory for 40 years, taking care of the employees, and protecting our family. Is that an ordinary feat? Your friends probably didn't do it with bad intentions. Now that they are getting older and retiring, they have some spare time, and they likely wanted to take care of you out of gratitude for everything you've given them over the years. They probably just don't know how to express it. My wife continued, gazing quietly into my eyes. When your factory closed, I didn't cry because I was sad about your ruin. I shed tears because my heart ached for you, having suffered so much, carrying that heavy burden all alone. Your life isn't a failure. Raising a reliable daughter is the very badge of honor, and the result of the 40 years you have spent working in the factory, getting your hands dirty with grease. You can eat the meals your friends treat you with gratitude. You fully deserve it. However, if you still feel uneasy, you don't have to see them anymore. I will cook the kimchi stew you like every day for you. As I heard those words, my vision blurred. The disappointment and emptiness I had felt outside crumbled at that single remark from my wife. She already knew exactly what I wanted to be comforted. I looked out the window. The streetlights in the alley were on. There were no passers-by, and it was quiet. It felt as though the day was slowly coming to a close. That transparent line I felt throughout the round. The hand that snatched my card when I held it out. Dongsu's words bring up his circumstances even over a cup of coffee. It felt like my desire to prove something more had ended today. I thought that in the 40 years I had run this factory, I had never once struggled to be recognized by anyone, but I don't know when I started trying to show people something. I picked up my phone and turned off the group chat notifications. That night, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. A month has passed since I returned from golf. I had turned off the group chat notifications. Turning them off didn't mean I had made any resolutions. I just wanted to be quiet. For a while, I got along well without any particular issues. I would wake up in the morning, eat breakfast with my wife, walk around the neighborhood, and spend the afternoon sitting by the sunlit window. That was how I spent the day. That was all. But strangely, it wasn't bad. As I walked, various thoughts flowed through my mind. When the factory was doing well, I had hundreds of phone numbers on my transfer list. I could count on my fingers how many of them actually reached out to me first, even after the factory closed. Punte Kapashia closed. It wasn't that those people were bad. That was just how the world was. Connections made during business naturally fade once the business ended. It would be unfair to call it betrayal, since that is how I've lived my life too. I welcomed the people who came to see me when things were going well. I thought of my friends too. That transparent line I felt on the field that day. But after thinking about it for a few days, I realized that line wasn't such a bad thing after all. They were guys I'd known for 50 years, and they just didn't know how to handle the situation. Given my changed circumstances, they were just clumsy at expressing themselves. It wasn't that their hearts had changed. Thinking that made me feel a little lighter. Then one weekend, I received a text from Seyon. Dad, can I bring Jiha today? Sure, come on over. I replied briefly. In the afternoon, the front door opened. Jihaka was the first to run in. The sound of footsteps filled the entire house. He ran to my lap and rested both arms high. He wanted to be hugged. When I lifted him up, Jiha kissed my cheek. As Seoyeon Junyo came in, the living room suddenly became peaceful. My wife became busy in the kitchen, and Junyo came back carrying a lot of things. Father, how are you doing these days? I'm doing well, really. Do I look good? Yeah. I let out a chuckle. We ate dinner together. Jiha was playing with a spoon, spilling soup. Getting scolded by Seoyeon and crying again, but when I comforted him, he laughed as if nothing had happened. I really liked that commotion. After eating, Seoyeon was talking about something next to my wife, and I sat in the living room with Jiha. Jiha brought a piece of paper and started drawing something. His hand holding the crayons was crooked. After drawing for a while, he came in front of me holding the paper. Two people had been drawn, one big person and one small person. It was crooked, but I could feel love in the drawing. I stared at that paper for a long time. My nose tingled while running the factory. I had stamped contracts worth tens of millions of won. But this single crooked sheet of paper felt heavier than any contract I thought I had lost everything when I closed down the factory, but it wasn't business cards, titles, or bank books. It was this single piece of paper. The heart of my granddaughter, running to see her grandfather because she missed him. I realized that all the 40 years I spent working with Urzis on my hands were ultimately for this. Even though the factory had closed, I had cultivated my life well. After my daughter's family left, the front door was damaged. As my wife was tidying up the dishes, she said that the house comes alive now that Jiha is here. Indeed, I pasted the paper Jiha had drawn on the refrigerator. I stepped back and looked at it. It was crooked, but it was good. That night, I opened the group chat again. There were messages that accumulated over time. I chuckled softly as I read about couples, golf, the weather, and funny videos someone had sent. I had spent 50 years with these guys, so there was nothing I needed to cut off now. It was enough to just get along like this. I didn't have to play golf every month. I didn't have to worry about the cost of meals, and it was enough to just check in occasionally. Lowering my expectations actually made me feel more at ease. A few more days passed. When I opened my eyes in the morning, my heart felt strangely light. It wasn't that anything special had happened, but I just felt light. I heard my wife moving around in the kitchen. The sound of dishes clinking. It was a sound I heard every day, but that morning it felt really good. I washed my face, came out and sat at the dining table. Did you sleep well? Yeah, I slept well. After finishing my meal, I looked out the window. Sunlight was streaming into the alley. People passing by, an old woman walking her dog, a child riding a bicycle. It was an ordinary morning, but that ordinariness felt particularly precious that day. I picked up my phone and entered the group chat. Mono posted a message last night. Let's set a date for a couple's golf get-together. As I read it, I thought for a moment, should I go or not? In the past, I wouldn't have even had that dilemma. I would have naturally gone, but now it was different. If I wanted to go, I went. If not, I didn't. That was all there was to it. There was no need to force myself to fit in, no need to prove anything. I just followed my heart. As I put down my phone, a thought suddenly occurred to me. I think I have placed so much meaning on so many things my whole life. Titles, business cards, positions. How people viewed me, the way they looked at me, when the factory was doing well. All of that was taken for granted. Those two words, President Park, represented who I was, but I realized it only after they were gone. Even without those two words, I was still here. I thought it was pathetic, but when I looked closely, it wasn't. There is something I realize as I get older. When you are young, you try to gather people based on what you possess. People gather when you have money, follow when you have a position, and your phone rings when you have a business card. But the moment those things disappear, those who gathered scatter silently. Like a sandy beach swept by the waves, the people who truly remain were someone else entirely. The people who stayed by my side without a word, whether I had nothing or had achieved a great deal. My granddaughter, daughter, and son-in-law. Those were the real deal in my life. The words Manho Dongsu and Yang Chio licked my heart on the field that day. But now they didn't feel that significant. Those guys were just people growing old too. I couldn't deny that I, who used to judge others based on what they had and blurted out hurtful words, because I didn't know how to act when circumstances changed, had never done that myself. So there was no reason to hate. I just needed to keep a little distance. Not cutting them off, not forcing myself to cling to them, just as much as was comfortable and natural. I think that is the wisdom of relationships, learned as one ages. If you try to embrace everyone, you end up hurting yourself. People who see me as I am, people who are there for me even when I have nothing. I just needed to focus on those people. The sunlight outside the window grew brighter. My wife hummed a tune loudly as she tidied up the kitchen. It was a quiet sound, but it seemed to fill the entire house. I simply closed my eyes for a moment while listening to it. I realized that this is what know you is. It doesn't have to be glamorous. You don't have to seek recognition from others, and there is nothing to prove. Simply living out today quietly was enough. It felt as though I had quietly let go of something I hadn't been able to let go of for a long time. Living simply as Park Jae-seok, instead of under the name President Park. Seeing my life through my own eyes, not through the gaze of others. That wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. No, it was actually quite good. If my humble story touched you even a little, please show support by Shuspati. I sincerely wish for peace to settle in your later years. Thank you for watching until the end.